between us. Your position has been eliminated, effective immediately. 7 years. 7 years of missed birthdays, skipped vacations, and 3 a.m. strategy sessions, all condensed into a 15-minute termination meeting and a severance check that felt insultingly small in my trembling hands. The board made this decision last night, Kieran continued, his voice carefully neutral. It's nothing personal, Siv. Nothing personal. As if I hadn't just closed the Westbrook deal last week, a contract worth over $400,000 that had taken me 6 months to secure. As if I hadn't increased our client retention rate by 42% in the past year alone. Adele from Human Resources slid another document across the table. We'll need you to sign this non-disclosure agreement and return all company property before leaving the building. I signed mechanically, mind racing ahead to the implications. The termination was effective immediately. No transition period, no handover of accounts, no chance to say goodbye to clients I'd cultivated relationships with for years. Your personal belongings will be packed and delivered to your home address, Adele added. Not unkindly. I nodded, maintaining the composed expression I'd perfected over years of high-stakes negotiations. They wouldn't see me break. Not here, not now. As I stood to leave, Kieran finally looked directly at me. One more thing, Siv. Any company information in your possession needs to be returned immediately. That includes all client lists, contact information, contract details, everything. A chill ran through me. Did he know? Could he possibly have discovered that I'd downloaded the entire client database to my personal drive last week? I'd done it as a precaution after overhearing Kieran and the CFO whispering about necessary cuts in the break room. Of course, I replied smoothly. I understand my obligations. The security guard waiting outside, Reed, who had greeted me by name every morning for 7 years, now avoided my eyes as he escorted me to clear out my desk. 20 minutes later, I stood on the sidewalk, cardboard box in hand, watching the revolving door spin without me. My phone buzzed with a text from Kieran. You need to return everything, Siv. All company property and information. The desperation in the message was telling. They were worried, but not specific enough to indicate they knew exactly what I had. I had always been the company's relationship builder, the one who remembered client birthdays and children's names, the one who turned cold contacts into loyal partners. The database I'd saved wasn't just names and numbers. It represented potential consulting contracts worth over $475,000. What Kieran didn't realize was that I hadn't just lost a job today. I'd gained freedom, and the leverage to use it. My phone buzzed again. Legal will contact you tomorrow if we don't receive confirmation that all company information has been returned. I slipped the phone into my pocket without responding and hailed a taxi. As the city blurred past the window, I made my decision. They had underestimated me for the last time. If you've ever been blindsided by betrayal, you know that hollow feeling that turns to fire in your chest. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe to hear how justice eventually found its way back to me. Drop a comment if you've ever had to rebuild from ashes. I'd love to know I'm not alone in this journey. My name is Siv Talwar. I grew up watching my grandmother run a small alterations shop in our neighborhood, turning scraps of forgotten fabric into beautiful creations while teaching me that preparation prevents desperation. When customers failed to pay, she always had contingency plans. Never let them see you scramble, she'd tell me, pins held between her lips. I carried that wisdom through college, working 3 jobs to cover what my scholarship didn't. While classmates partied, I built spreadsheets, tracking industry trends and identifying future opportunities. Professors called me pathologically prepared. They weren't wrong. Landing the job at my former company had felt like destiny. The interview with Kieran had lasted 3 hours. We connected instantly over shared visions of relationship-based business development. Most people in this industry focus on transactions, he'd said. You understand it's about building trust. For 7 years, I proved him right. I transformed our client acquisition strategy, bringing in businesses that had rejected previous approaches. My methods became case studies in the company training manual. Last year, when I secured the Tremont account, a client so prestigious that competitors had been courting them for decades, Kieran had actually hugged me during the celebration dinner. The future of this company, he'd called me, glass raised in a toast. the future, until a Tuesday morning in April when I became expendable. Back in my apartment, I kicked off my heels and opened my personal laptop. The encrypted folder contained everything: client contracts, communication preferences, decision maker profiles, active proposals. Knowledge worth far more than my severance package. My phone rang with an unknown number. Civ? It's Davi Tremont. My heart skipped. Davi was the operations director at my former company's most prestigious client. I just heard what happened, he continued, genuine concern in his voice. Is it true? Unfortunately, yes, this morning. That's surprising. You're the only reason we signed with them in the first place. I sighed. Apparently, I'm a budget liability now. Well, they've already assigned someone new to our account. Pen, she called to introduce herself an hour ago. Pen, my stomach tightened. The recent hire who had been shadowing me for weeks, supposedly to learn from the best. Now it made sense. She had been training to replace me all along. Civ, Davi continued, hesitation evident in his voice. We have some concerns about this transition. Our contract renewal is coming up next quarter. The conversation ended with Davi suggesting we catch up soon, code for keeping channels open. As night fell, I meticulously organized the client information, identifying relationships most likely to follow me versus those loyal to the company brand. My phone continually lit up with messages from colleagues expressing shock, from clients inquiring about my future plans, and repeatedly from Kieran demanding confirmation that I had returned all company information. I didn't respond to Kieran. Instead, I composed an email to Rune, a former colleague who had left last year to launch his own small consulting practice. Rune, we should talk. Coffee tomorrow? I have an idea that might benefit us both. His response was immediate. Heard what happened. Those fools. Coffee at 10, Loomies on Park? As I finally prepared for bed, exhaustion weighing my limbs, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. Civ, it's Drew from finance. You should know, your layoff wasn't about restructuring. Kieran told the board you were taking excessive commissions on your deals. I thought you deserved the truth. Sleep came in restless bursts that night. By morning, cold fury had replaced shock. This wasn't just about professional survival anymore. This was about justice. Loomy's coffee shop buzzed with morning commuters when I arrived. Rune had claimed a corner table, 2 ceramic mugs waiting. He'd always been observant. It was what made him an excellent analyst, and his eyes widened slightly as he studied my face. You look remarkably composed for someone whose career just imploded, he said as I slid into the seat across from him. Years of practice, I replied, wrapping my hands around the mug. Perfect temperature. He remembered I preferred it not too hot. So what's this idea? And please tell me it involves making Kieran regret the day he was born. I smiled for what felt like the first time in days. It might, eventually. But first, let's talk about partnership. Over the next hour, I outlined my vision. A boutique consulting firm that would provide the same services I had mastered at my former company, but with the personalized approach that larger firms couldn't match. Rune's existing business infrastructure, combined with my client relationships, could create something formidable. Quickly. The relationships you're talking about, Rune said cautiously, stirring his coffee. They're with the company's clients, not yours personally. There could be legal implications. Non-compete clauses only prevent direct solicitation, I replied. If clients approach us because they're dissatisfied with their current service provider, that's different. Rune's eyes narrowed. And why would they suddenly become dissatisfied? I took another sip of coffee. Because their trusted contact has been replaced by someone inexperienced, and because we're going to offer something better. As we continued planning, my phone vibrated on the table. A text from Kieran. Legal is concerned about missing files. We need to talk ASAP. I showed the message to Rune, whose eyebrows shot up. They know you took something? They suspect, but can't prove it, I said with more confidence than I felt. And technically, I didn't take anything that wasn't already in my possession as part of my job. Rune looked nervous. Civ, if they come after you legally, they won't. I interrupted. They can't afford the publicity of admitting how poorly they managed client transitions. Besides, by the time they figure out what's happening, it will be too late. But as I left the coffee shop an hour later, doubt crept in. Was I underestimating Kieran? He hadn't become a director by being stupid. If he suspected I had the client database, he would be preparing his own countermoves. I needed to accelerate my timeline. Back home, I began making calls, not to clients, which would violate my non-compete, but to other former colleagues who had left under similar circumstances, people who might share my motivation for seeing the company's clients receive better service elsewhere. By evening, I had assembled a small but talented team. Rune for operations, Zara for design, Tao for technical implementation, and myself as lead strategist. Each brought unique skills and, importantly, existing relationships that complemented mine. We gathered that night at my apartment, spreading notes and laptops across my dining table. Energy crackled between us, the excitement of creation mixed with the vindicating thrill of potential retribution. "We'll need a name," Zara said, opening her design software. "Something that reflects transformation," Tao suggested. "That's essentially what we're offering clients, a transformation from their current experience." As we brainstormed, my phone rang. Kieran. The room fell silent as I stared at the screen. "Are you going to answer?" Rune asked quietly. I took a deep breath and accepted the call. "Hello, Kieran." "Siv." His voice was tight. "We need to discuss the client information you accessed before leaving. It has identified unauthorized downloads from our secure server last week." My heart raced, but my voice remained steady. "I accessed information relevant to my position, as I had every day for 7 years. There was nothing unauthorized about it." "You know exactly what I'm talking about. The board is considering legal action unless you return all company property and information immediately." The threat hung in the air. My new team watched me, tension visible in their postures. "That's interesting," I said slowly, "considering Drew told me why you really pushed for my termination. The lies you told the board about my commission structure." There was a telling pause before Kieran responded. "Drew shouldn't be discussing board matters with former employees. And you shouldn't be making false accusations to cover your own mismanagement," I countered. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans this evening." I ended the call before he could respond, my hand trembling slightly. "He sounds worried," Zara observed with a small smile. "He should be," I replied, turning back to our planning session. "Now, about that company name. By midnight, we had our foundation, Keystone Solutions, a new consulting firm built on the strengths of our collective experiences. We had roles, responsibilities, and a timeline for launch. What we didn't have yet was confirmation that clients would follow. As my team left with renewed purpose, I checked my email one last time before bed. There, waiting in my inbox, was a message that made my breath catch. Subject: Consulting Opportunity, from Davi Tremont. "Siv, heard rumors you might be starting something new. Our contract with your former employer has a 30-day cancellation clause. Let's talk soon about potential alternatives. The service since your departure has been disappointing." I smiled at the screen. It was beginning. But as I prepared for bed, another message arrived. This one far less welcome. "This is your final warning, Siv. Return all company information or face legal consequences. We know what you took. Kieran." Attached was a formal letter from the company's legal department, threatening immediate action unless I complied within 24 hours. The game was escalating faster than I had anticipated, and the stakes had just gotten much higher. Sleep eluded me that night as I weighed my options. By morning, I had made my decision. This was no longer just about rebuilding my career or even about justice. This was war. I woke before dawn, my mind already churning with strategy. The legal threat sitting in my inbox required immediate attention, but not in the way Kieran expected. He was counting on fear to drive my response. Instead, I chose calculation. I called Tao first. "I need you to analyze the company's security logs. Can you determine exactly what they can prove I downloaded?" "I still have backdoor access," he replied, voice low despite the early hour. "Give me an hour." Next, I contacted a former classmate who had become a respected employment attorney. Nix listened carefully as I explained the situation, including the revelation about Kieran's lies to the board. They're bluffing, she concluded after reviewing the legal notice. If they had definitive proof, they would have included specifics. This is a fishing expedition. So how do I respond? Technically, not at all yet. You have 24 hours. Use them wisely. By mid-morning, our improvised team had gathered at Rune's small office space. Tao arrived last, dark circles under his eyes but wearing a triumphant expression. Good news and better news, he announced, connecting his laptop to the conference room display. The security logs show you accessed the client database last Tuesday, but there's no record of a download because you didn't use their download function. You manually copied entries while logged in. Perfectly normal activity for your position. Relief washed through me. And the better news? Pen, your replacement? She's been desperately contacting clients for the past 2 days. Based on the internal messaging I can still access, she's hemorrhaging relationships faster than anyone anticipated. Zara leaned forward. Why? What's she doing wrong? Everything? Tao laughed. Yesterday, she called the Tremont Group's procurement director by the wrong name 3 times. Then asked about a project they completed months ago as if it were still in progress. Davi must be livid, I murmured, remembering how particular he was about details. That's putting it mildly. He's called Kieran twice, demanding to speak with you. A slow smile spread across my face. Perfect. We spent the next hours refining our launch strategy. Rather than directly soliciting clients, we would announce our new venture through industry channels where former clients would naturally see it. Meanwhile, I would respond to inquiries that came to me directly, like Davi's email, with careful language that avoided violating non-compete clauses. Just after noon, my phone rang with Davi's number. I've been trying to reach you, he said without preamble. This new person they've assigned to our account is completely unprepared. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Transitions can be challenging. This isn't a transition issue. She doesn't understand our business model or our 5-year expansion plan, the one you helped us develop. His frustration vibrated through the phone. Kieran keeps insisting everything will smooth out, but we have deliverables due next week. I chose my next words carefully. I'm not in a position to discuss my former employer's internal matters, Davi, but I am establishing a new consulting practice focused on relationship-based strategic planning. The line went quiet for a moment. How soon could you be operational? We're launching officially in 2 weeks, but for the right client partnerships, we could expedite certain services. Send me information as soon as you have it, he said. And Siv? There are others who've been asking about you. After ending the call, I shared the development with my team. Excitement buzzed through the room until Rune raised the critical question. What about Kieran's legal threat? The deadline is tonight. I nodded. I'm drafting a response now, one that will buy us time while making them second-guess their approach. By late afternoon, with Nix's guidance, I had crafted a carefully worded reply. I acknowledge receipt of your correspondence. To clarify, I have not retained any proprietary information outside the scope of my normal job functions. Any suggestion otherwise is both factually incorrect and potentially defamatory. I remain open to a constructive dialogue regarding transition matters should that be necessary. Regarding the circumstances of my termination, I have received concerning information about misrepresentations made to the board. I trust this can be addressed professionally without further escalation. This is brilliant, Nix said after reviewing the final draft. Non-threatening, but with a clear implication that you know something that could damage Kieran personally. I sent the email, then waited. The response came faster than expected. Not from legal, but from Kieran himself. We should talk in person. Coffee tomorrow? Just you and me. My team advised caution. It could be a trap, Zara warned. They might be recording to get you to admit to taking the database. Or it could be Kieran trying to save himself, I countered. Either way, I need to know what he's planning. We agreed I would meet him, but with precautions. I would arrive early to select the location, Rune would sit nearby as a witness, and I would say nothing that could be construed as an admission. That night, as I prepared for the confrontation, Drew from finance called again. There's more you should know, he said, voice barely above a whisper. After you left, Kieran told the executive team you had been planning to poach clients for months. He's building a narrative that you've been deliberately undermining the company. My hand tightened around the phone. Why would he say that? Because 3 major clients have called expressing concerns about their new account managers. The Tremont Group is already talking about reviewing their contract. Kieran needs a scapegoat, and the board believes him? For now. But the CFO is asking questions about why our most valuable relationship manager was terminated without a transition plan. Drew paused. Watch yourself tomorrow. Kieran's desperate. Sleep eluded me again that night. Instead, I paced my apartment, rehearsing responses to every possible scenario. By morning, I felt prepared for anything, except the sight of Kieran waiting at the cafe, looking not threatening but broken. Gray shadows underlined his eyes. His normally immaculate appearance was rumpled, as if he'd slept in his clothes. When he saw me approach, something like relief washed over his face. "Thank you for coming," he said as I sat across from him. Rune was positioned 3 tables away, pretending to work on his laptop. I was curious about what couldn't be said over email, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Kieran glanced around nervously before leaning forward. "I need your help, Siv." Whatever I had expected, it wasn't this. My help? The Tremont Group is threatening to cancel their contract. Davi won't even take my calls anymore. Pen is drowning, and the board is asking why we let you go in the first place. I kept my expression carefully blank. That sounds like an internal management issue. It's becoming an existential one, he admitted, voice cracking slightly. 2 other major clients are now expressing concerns. The board has scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow. And what does this have to do with me? He took a deep breath. I want to offer you your job back. Higher salary, director title, more autonomy. For a moment, I was speechless. The audacity was breathtaking. To fire me unceremoniously, then expect me to rescue him from the consequences. That's an interesting proposition, I finally managed. I know it's unexpected, he continued, desperation seeping into his tone. But we both know you're the only one who can salvage these relationships. The same relationships you accused me of trying to poach? His eyes widened. How did you? It doesn't matter how I know, Kieran. What matters is that you fired me without cause, lied about my performance to the board, and are now facing the natural consequences of those actions. I made a mistake, he admitted, running a hand through his disheveled hair. A terrible one. But this isn't just about me. There are 50 jobs at stake if these contracts cancel. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost insulting. Yet underneath my anger, I felt a flicker of curiosity. This desperate version of Kieran was revealing vulnerabilities I could potentially leverage. Why did you really fire me? I asked, holding his gaze. He looked away first. The board was pressuring for cost reductions. Your compensation package was substantial after the Tremont Commission, and rather than find other solutions, you sacrificed me and lied to justify it. Yes, he whispered. I let the admission hang between us for a long moment. I'm not coming back, Kieran. Please. I've already established my own consulting practice with several former colleagues. We launch officially in 2 weeks. The color drained from his face. You can't. The non-compete prevents me from soliciting your clients directly. It doesn't prevent them from seeking me out after receiving substandard service. I stood, gathering my bag. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a business to build. Siv, wait. Panic sharpened his voice. If clients leave because of you, the company will pursue legal action. You know too much about our internal systems, our pricing structures. We'll claim trade secret violations. I paused, looking down at him. That would be unfortunate for everyone, especially if certain board members learned about the actual circumstances of my termination. His expression hardened. Is that a threat? Just an observation about consequences, I replied evenly. Good luck with your board meeting tomorrow. As I walked away, Rune quickly gathered his things to follow. Outside, the spring air felt electric against my skin. That was intense, Rune said, falling into step beside me. What now? Now we accelerate everything. Launch in 1 week instead of 2. And I need to meet with Davi immediately. Davi agreed to meet that afternoon at a quiet restaurant near his office. His handshake was firm, his expression a mixture of relief and curiosity. I appreciate you making time, he said as we settled at a corner table, especially given the circumstances. The circumstances being that my former employer is struggling to maintain the quality of service you've come to expect, I suggested mildly. He smiled. Precisely. Though Kieran called this morning promising a more experienced replacement by next week. Did he mention who? No, but he seemed unusually anxious. Actually used the word please several times. Davi studied me thoughtfully. I get the feeling there's more happening behind the scenes. There usually is, I agreed, sliding a sleek folder across the table. This is a preliminary overview of the services my new firm can provide, starting as early as next Monday. Davi opened the folder, eyebrows rising as he scanned the contents. This is comprehensive, and these rates are competitive. We're structured for efficiency. No bloated management layers, no unnecessary overhead. He nodded slowly, continuing to read. And your team includes Tao Chen? The same Tao who developed our custom analytics dashboard last year? The very same, along with Zara and Rune, both of whom you've worked with previously. A formidable combination. He closed the folder, his decision evident in his eyes before he spoke. I'll need to review this with my team, but I think we can safely say the Tremont Group would prefer continuity in our strategic planning. I kept my expression professionally pleased, but inside, triumph roared. We would be honored to continue supporting your vision, Davi. I should mention, he added, lowering his voice slightly, I've been fielding calls from other clients in similar situations. Your name keeps coming up. By the time I left the restaurant, Tremont hadn't just agreed to become our first client. Davi had offered to make introductions to 3 other businesses in their network. The pieces were falling into place faster than I had dared hope. I called an emergency meeting with my team to share the developments and adjust our timeline. 1 week to launch is ambitious, Zara cautioned as we gathered that evening. The branding materials, the service agreements, the infrastructure, Helex agreements, will make it happen, Rune interrupted, energy radiating from him. This is our moment. Tao was already typing furiously on his laptop. I can have the client portal operational by Monday. Basic functionality first, refinements later. As we worked late into the night, finalizing details and dividing responsibilities, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Board meeting moved up to tomorrow morning. Kieran fighting for his job. Thought you should know, Drew. I showed the message to my team. The pressure is mounting faster than expected. Good, Rune said firmly. Let him sweat, but part of me wondered if we were underestimating Kieran's desperation. Cornered predators are at their most dangerous. My concern proved justified the next morning. When Nix called, her voice tight with urgency. They've filed for an emergency injunction, she said without preamble, claiming you stole trade secrets and are actively sabotaging client relationships. They're seeking to prevent you from launching your business. My stomach dropped. On what grounds? They're claiming they have evidence you downloaded proprietary information. Someone named Penn provided an affidavit stating she saw you copying client data the week before your termination. That's impossible, I breathed. She wouldn't have had access to see what I was doing on my computer. They're also claiming unusual access patterns to the client database from your login credentials. Tao had confirmed there was no record of downloads. How could they? Then it hit me. They're fabricating evidence. Possibly, Nix agreed. But the judge granted a temporary hearing for tomorrow morning. This is moving extremely fast, Civ. After ending the call, I gathered my team for an emergency meeting. As I explained the situation, their expressions shifted from shock to determination. They're bluffing, Tao insisted. I verified the logs myself. Bluff or not, we need to be prepared, I replied. Nix is pulling together our defense, but we need a contingency plan in case the injunction is granted. Rune leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. What about Drew? Could he provide counter-evidence about what really happened? I don't want to put his job at risk, I said, though the idea had merit. Let's save that as a last resort. As we strategized our response, my phone rang with another unknown number. I answered cautiously. Is this Civ Talwar? A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. Yes. Who's calling? My name is Indra Walsh. I'm a board member at your former company. I believe we need to talk. The room fell silent, all eyes on me. About what, exactly? About Kieran's management decisions, the circumstances of your departure, and why 3 major clients are suddenly threatening to terminate their contracts. Could we meet privately, today, if possible? I covered the phone and whispered the situation to my team. Their reactions were mixed, concern about a potential trap, but also recognition of an extraordinary opportunity. I can meet at 3 p.m., I finally told her, at the Winter Garden in the Barstow building. I chose the location deliberately. A public atrium with multiple exits, too noisy for effective recording, but with private seating areas where conversations wouldn't be overheard. Indra arrived precisely on time, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that radiated authority. I recognized her from company events, always observant, rarely speaking unless her words carried weight. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I'll be direct. The board received concerning information about your termination that contradicts Kieran's explanation." "What explanation did he provide?" I asked, keeping my expression neutral. "Initially, that your position was eliminated in a restructuring. Then, when clients began complaining, that you had been planning to leave and take clients with you." She paused, studying my reaction. "Yesterday, when pressed further, he claimed you had become difficult to work with and were demanding unreasonable compensation." I couldn't help the short laugh that escaped me. 3 different stories. Interesting. Indeed. Indra's expression remained serious. "This morning, he presented evidence that you stole proprietary information before leaving. Yet, our CFO has raised questions about the authenticity of this evidence. Because it's fabricated," I stated flatly. She nodded slowly. "That's our suspicion as well. What's not fabricated, however, is the client exodus we're facing. The Tremont Group has formally notified us of their intent to terminate their contract." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, not entirely honestly. "Are you?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "The board has called an emergency session for this evening. Kieran's future with the company will be decided." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because we're exploring all options to salvage these client relationships." She leaned forward slightly, "including potential collaboration with your new venture. Of all possible scenarios, this was one I hadn't anticipated." "Collaboration?" "A strategic partnership. Your firm would manage specific high-value client relationships, with our company providing back-end support and resources." The offer was both brilliant and revealing. They were desperate enough to consider sharing revenue rather than losing clients entirely. "That's an interesting proposition," I said carefully, "though it would require dropping the legal action against me and my team." "That's already being discussed," she assured me. "The injunction was Kieran's initiative, not the board's." As our conversation continued, the outlines of a potential arrangement emerged, one that would allow my new company to grow rapidly with institutional support, while giving my former employer time to rebuild their client service capabilities. By the time we parted, Indra had invited me to present the partnership concept to the board the following week. "After certain personnel changes are implemented," she added meaningfully. I returned to my team with this unexpected development. Their reactions ranged from cautious optimism to outright suspicion. "It could be a trap to delay our launch while they try to recover the client relationships themselves," Zara warned. "Or it could be exactly what it seems, a pragmatic business decision," Rune countered. "They're facing a client exodus and need to stop the bleeding." As we debated late into the evening, another text arrived from Drew. "Kieran terminated effective immediately. Board voted unanimously. Meeting tomorrow to discuss strategic partnership opportunities." "What did you do?" I showed the message to my team, a complex mix of emotions washing through me. Vindication, certainly, but also a strange emptiness where my anger had been. "So what now?" Tao asked, breaking the silence. "Do we partner with them or continue independently?" I considered the question carefully. The partnership offered advantages: immediate legitimacy, back-office support, reduced legal risk. But it also meant compromising the complete independence we had envisioned. "We proceed with our launch as planned," I decided finally. "But we keep the dialogue open with the board. Let's see what they're really offering before making any commitments." The next morning, as we prepared for the injunction hearing, Nix called with surprising news. The complaint has been withdrawn, she announced. No hearing necessary. Relief flooded through me. The board must have intervened. Most likely. I also received a formal request for partnership discussions from their corporate counsel. They're moving quickly. Over the next week, events unfolded with dizzying speed. The injunction threat disappeared completely. Kieran's personal belongings were reportedly packed and removed from his office. The same unceremonious exit he had orchestrated for me. Our company launched as scheduled, with the Tremont Group as our anchor client. 3 other major clients followed within days. The partnership discussions with my former employer evolved into a more limited arrangement. We would collaborate on specific projects where our expertise complemented theirs, but maintain our independence. 1 month after my termination, I sat in a boardroom, not as an employee, but as the CEO of a thriving consulting practice, negotiating terms with the very company that had discarded me. Across the table sat Indra and the executive team, minus Kieran. Their expressions were respectful, even deferential, a stark contrast to that fateful day in Conference Room B. Before we conclude, Indra said as our discussion wound down, the board wishes to formally apologize for the circumstances of your departure, Siv. It's clear now that it was based on inaccurate information and poor judgment. I nodded my acknowledgement, maintaining the professional composure I had perfected over years of high-stakes negotiations. Apology accepted. I prefer to focus on the future opportunities our collaboration presents. As we signed the preliminary agreement, I felt no need to mention the client database still securely stored on my encrypted drive, the one I had never actually needed to use. The true power had never been in the data itself, but in the relationships I had built, the trust I had earned, and the reputation for excellence I had established over years of dedicated service. My revenge wasn't accomplished through exposing secrets or damaging the company. It came through building something better, something that forced them to recognize exactly what they had lost when they discarded me. As I gathered my materials to leave, Indra walked me to the elevator. You know, she said thoughtfully, when Kieran first suggested terminating you, I was the only board member who objected. I said it would come back to haunt us. I smiled as the elevator doors opened. Prophetic, not prophecy, she replied. Just experience. I've learned that how you treat people always returns to you eventually, for better or worse. Stepping into the elevator, I felt the weight of the past month finally lifting. In that case, I said as the doors began to close, I look forward to a very positive relationship moving forward. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more tales of professional resilience and strategic thinking. Have you ever been underestimated, only to prove your true value later? Share your experience in the comments. Sometimes our greatest achievements come after our most difficult setbacks. Remember, success isn't just about climbing to the top. It's about how gracefully you rebuild when someone tries to knock you down.